Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something, well, pretty fundamental. It's how we humans understand each other's feelings, and maybe surprisingly, how things like slang fit into that connection.
Right.
And what makes this really timely is, AI, artificial intelligence, and its attempts to get a handle on these very human things.
Exactly. We've looked at a bunch of articles and research comparing us and AI here.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the key insights from all that, give you a clear picture of where AI stands right now, both with emotions and our informal language.
And we'll touch on what this might mean going forward, as we interact more and more with AI. It's a really fascinating crossroads.
It really is. It makes you think, doesn't it? I was just chatting with a friend the other day, and they used some slang term, totally new to me. And just for a second, I felt this, disconnect, a little barrier.
Yeah.
And it just hit me. If we humans, with all our shared culture, can stumble over slang, imagine the challenge for a computer trying to decode feelings and language.
That's a perfect example, really, of the complexity we're getting into. Human emotion, human language, especially the informal stuff like slang, it's incredibly layered, so much context.
Right.
Shared experiences, cultural understanding. It's not just the dictionary definition, is it? It's the feeling, the history behind the words.
Okay, so let's unpack that. How do we humans actually manage to decode emotions? The sources point to this really intricate mix, don't they? Psychology, biology, development.
Culture, cognition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in there. From the psych perspective, emotions are these complex responses. What's happening inside us physically, how we show it outside, and then our own, subjective feeling. And key to navigating all that is emotional intelligence. Our ability to spot, understand, manage, influence emotions, ours and others.
That four-part thing, right. Self-awareness, self-management.
Exactly. Social awareness, relationship management. And we talk about basic emotions, maybe universal ones like joy, sadness, and then much more complex, nuanced feelings, harder to pin down sometimes.
And it's not just in our heads, is it? There's actual biology, brain parts.
Oh, absolutely. Key brain regions are involved. You've got the amygdala, often linked to fear, anger, the hippocampus tying memories to emotions,
right.
The hypothalamus regulating the physical side, heart rate, sweating, that kind of thing, and the limbic cortex influencing our general mood.
And chemicals, too. Neurotransmitters.
Yes, exactly. Those chemical messengers are crucial. Dopamine for pleasure, maybe, serotonin for mood, norepinephrine, cortisol for stress responses, oxytocin for bonding.
Wow.
These signals really shape our emotional states, and even our genes might play a role. Things like OXTR, BDNF, CD38. They're being studied for links to emotional regulation, empathy. It shows how deep this capacity runs in our biology.
So it's biological, but we also learn it, right? Develop it over time.
Definitely. We're not born fully formed emotionally. It starts in infancy, this development, and it keeps going. Those early interactions, learning to name feelings, they're critical.
For building resilience and coping later on.
And generally, as our brains mature, our ability to manage emotions tends to improve. It's interesting, some research even suggests older adults might feel more positive emotions overall, maybe a kind of resilience.
But maybe some decline, too, like recognizing certain expressions.
Yeah, there can be some age-related shifts. Maybe recognizing some negative facial expressions gets a bit harder. It just shows it's dynamic. It changes across our lifespan.
And then there's culture. That adds a whole other dimension.
Oh, absolutely.
Because even if some expressions are universal, the rules for showing them, they vary wildly, don't they, these display rules?
Totally. Some cultures encourage showing emotion openly, others value restraint. And it goes deeper than just showing. Culture affects how much we value certain emotions. Maybe high-energy feelings are prized more in some Western cultures, while calmness is valued more in some Eastern ones.
Right.
Even reading faces isn't universal. Some cultures focus more on the mouth, others the eyes.
And language itself. Different words for specific feelings.
Exactly. Language shapes how we even experience emotions. Some languages have words for nuances that just don't translate directly.
Okay, my head's spinning a little. It's so much. And it's not like feeling is separate from thinking, right? They influence each other constantly.
Completely intertwined. Emotions shape what we notice, what we pay attention to, how we learn, remember, even how we reason and solve problems.
So they can help? Like gut feelings?
They can, but they can also hinder, lead to biases like emotional reasoning, believing something's true just because it feels true. Finding that balance, that wise mind idea where logic and emotion work together, that's often key for good judgment.
Right. So that's the human side, incredibly complex. Now, let's switch gears. How is AI trying to tackle this emotion AI or affective computing field?
Okay, yeah, the basic goal is to get machines to interpret, process, and maybe even simulate human emotions.
How do they even start?
Well, it's a mix of methods. Natural language processing, NLP, is huge. Analyzing text, speech for emotional clues, and the sentence structure.
Like sentiment analysis. Positive, negative, neutral.
Exactly. Sentiment analysis is a core part of it. Identifying the overall tone.
But it's not just words, right? Faces, voices.
Correct. Computer vision is used to analyze facial expressions, looking for those tiny muscle movements linked to different feelings. And voice tone analysis examines acoustic features, pitch, speed, rhythm, trying to infer the emotional state from how we sound.
And I read about physiological signals too, like heart rate.
Yes, that's another layer. Using sensors to track heart rate changes, skin conductivity, maybe even brain activity. The hope is if you combine all these signals, words, face, voice, body, you get a more accurate picture.
Multimodal AI, they call it.
That's the term, yeah, integrating multiple modes of information.
So practically speaking, what can AI actually do now? Is it really reading our minds?
Not quite reading minds.
Right.
But it has made progress on, let's say, the more obvious emotions. In controlled lab settings, it can often spot laughter, crying, anger, happiness from faces and voices pretty well. And sentiment analysis is quite advanced. It can sift through lots of text or speech, categorize it, even distinguish between specific feelings like joy or frustration.
But the nuances, the subtle stuff,
Well,
the why.
that's the big challenge. Grasping subtle emotions, understanding the specific context, figuring out someone's real intention. That's much, much harder for AI currently.
So it sees the signs, maybe, but not the feeling behind them. Still, it's being used, right? Healthcare. Customer service.
Yes, definitely. And it's often about understanding basic human needs expressed through emotions.
How so?
Well, in healthcare, AI might analyze patient communication to spot signs of distress or worsening mental health, or personalize care based on inferred needs. In customer service, it analyzes feedback, calls, chats to gauge satisfaction, find pain points. Wearable AI might track sleep patterns or stress indicators through physiological signals.
Okay.
But, and this is crucial, it's doing this by correlating data patterns. It learns this pattern often occurs when people report feeling X. It doesn't feel tired or frustrated itself.
Right. Correlation, not subjective experience.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So what are the biggest hurdles, the main limitations for AI understanding us emotionally?
Several big ones. Context is huge. Sarcasm, irony, cultural jokes. They rely so much on shared background knowledge AI just doesn't have intrinsically.
Yeah, you can't just feed it a dictionary of sarcasm.
Exactly. And human emotions themselves are messy, right? Fluid, sometimes contradictory, influenced by our personal history, our culture. Very hard for a machine to model consistently.
And things like empathy, true understanding, self-awareness.
That's the fundamental gap. AI lacks genuine empathy, consciousness, subjective feeling. Plus, a major issue is bias in the training data.
How does that work?
If the data used to train the AI mostly shows how one group expresses emotions, the AI might misinterpret emotions from people from other groups. It leads to skewed, unfair outcomes.
Okay, that's a serious problem. So let's compare directly then. Just recognizing emotions, how do we stack up against AI, our intuition versus their algorithms?
It's interesting. Humans are amazing at picking up subtle cues using context, almost automatically. It's baked in from years of interaction.
Right.
AI can be incredibly accurate in controlled tests, analyzing tons of data points from faces, voices, etc. But its accuracy drops with bad lighting, facial hair, or if someone's deliberately hiding their feelings.
Things humans might still pick up on.
Often, yes. So AI can be precise in ideal conditions, but human intuition seems more flexible, more robust in the real, messy world.
And going deeper. Understanding why someone feels a certain way, their intentions. We use theory of mind for that, right?
Essentially, yes. We infer mental states, thoughts, feelings, beliefs in others based on context and our understanding of how people work.
How does AI compare there?
AI identifies patterns linked to emotions. It might correctly label anger, but it doesn't grasp the reason for the anger in the way a human can by considering the person's perspective, their goals, the situation. It lacks that consciousness, that true theory of mind.
And we keep circling back to context and culture. How different are we in AI in navigating that?
Humans use context almost without thinking the situation. Social norms, relationship history. We absorb cultural display rules implicitly. AI is being trained on more diverse data now, including cultural aspects. But it still really struggles with subtle references, sarcasm across cultures, culturally specific ways of showing emotion. Those unspoken rules are tough for systems based on explicit data.
Which brings us right back to slang and dialects. Humans use these to connect, to show belonging. What makes them so tricky for AI?
Oh, they're a huge challenge. Slang changes so fast. It's super context-dependent, tied to specific groups, cultures, locations.
Yeah, what's cool, one month is cringe the next.
Exactly. And there often aren't formal dictionaries or datasets for AI to learn from easily. Dialects add another layer, different words, grammar, pronunciation. It takes more than just recognizing word patterns to get the meaning and the social implication.
But AI is getting better at informal language, isn't it? Like those big language models.
Yes, there's definitely progress. NLP, speech recognition, language understanding are improving. Models like, the GPT series can generate surprisingly human-like chat, even use slang if you give them a persona.
So it can mimic it.
It's learning to mimic and recognize it better, yes.
Yeah.
But true fluency, deep understanding of the social nuance, keeping up with the constant change, that human-level grasp is still a long way off, I'd say.
It really hits home how fundamental this understanding emotions language is for us. But just how wide is its impact? Beyond just close relationships.
Oh, it's everywhere. It's the bedrock of almost all positive relationships. Family, friends, colleagues. It builds connection, empathy, trust, allows effective communication.
Right.
And that emotional attunement we get or don't get early in life, it has huge knock-on effects for our whole social and emotional development. It's the glue.
So personal life, definitely.
Yeah.
But what about work, school, other areas?
Absolutely critical there, too. Emotional intelligence is strongly tied to leadership, teamwork, customer engagement. Understanding and managing emotions helps academic performance, motivation, learning, everything, really.
Wow.
Developing emotional competence early on builds resilience for life's inevitable bumps. It touches careers, health, well-being. It's pervasive.
It's even wilder, the sources mentioned emotions affecting our perception of time and shaping history.
Yeah, it's true. High arousal positive emotions can make time feel like it's flying. Low energy negative ones can make it drag. And think about history, mass movements, revolutions, often fueled by collective emotions. Widespread anger, hope, fear. Understanding the emotional climate of an era is often key to understanding the events.
It's also just fascinating how different fields study emotions. Biology, philosophy, even physics, trying to model complex systems. And that age-old tension between emotion and logic.
Yes, each field brings a different lens. And as we said, emotions are tangled up with cognition, perception, attention, learning, memory, our core beliefs. Feelings often act as a powerful, if subconscious, validator for what we think is true.
Okay, looking ahead then. How can AI get better at understanding us? Feelings, slang, all of it.
Yeah.
What are the next steps?
Several key things. Using much more diverse, nuanced training data is crucial. Data that reflects how different people in different cultures and contexts actually express emotions.
Not just one standard model.
Exactly. And for slang, developing more sophisticated contextual models, AI needs to learn how meaning shifts with situation, speaker, culture, and it needs constant updating to keep up.
Continuous learning. And maybe humans helping train it more directly.
Yeah.
Like labeling conversations, giving feedback.
Definitely. Supervised learning with human annotations, reinforcement learning, where humans rate the AI's responses, those are very promising approaches.
Could AI even help us? Like with mental health support? Or understanding ourselves better?
There's potential there. AI could monitor for signs of distress, offer personalized interventions, maybe make basic support more accessible. Sentiment tracking apps could perhaps help individuals see their own emotional patterns.
And maybe even help us understand our own thinking or train empathy.
Potentially. By analyzing communication patterns, AI might offer insights into psychology. And simulations could be developed for practicing emotional intelligence skills in a safe space.
The sources even briefly mentioned intentional cruelty. That seems incredibly complex, way beyond just spotting negative feelings.
Oh, absolutely. Understanding the roots of cruelty needs a much broader approach: psychology, education promoting empathy, tackling societal issues. AI detection is only a tiny part, if any, of that puzzle.
It's a fun thought experiment. Imagine a world with no slang understanding for humans or AI. It really shows how vital it is for connection, for quick, shaded meaning.
It does. Our grasp is intuitive, cultural, contextual. AI's is pattern-based, data-driven. Maybe future AI will get closer with more contextual, perhaps even simulated experiential learning. But it's a different process.
And lastly, humor. Our ability to use humor, especially for coping or bonding. That seems like such a human thing, a really high bar for AI.
A very high bar. Humor is so subjective, so dependent on shared understanding and timing. It highlights the ongoing depth and complexity of human social intelligence.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear, isn't it? Understanding feelings and language, slang included, is incredibly complex for us and a massive challenge for AI.
Definitely.
AI's made strides in recognition, yes, but that deep, nuanced human comprehension, still a long road ahead. And as these systems get better at interacting with us, we need ongoing research and careful thought.
Absolutely. And fundamentally, as we develop AI, prioritizing genuine understanding, clear communication, and empathy in how humans and AI interact seems vital.
That's a really crucial point. So for you listening, maybe take a moment to think about your own day. How much do you rely on reading those tiny emotional cues from others? The tone shifts, the expressions, and how much do you use slang or informal language to connect, to belong, to just communicate efficiently? What would it be like without those tools? And looking ahead, how do you see your own interactions changing as AI gets more sophisticated? Lots to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
This is DigitView.